The night was thick with the scent of rain and decay, the forest heavy with shadows that seemed to move on their own. Care known by all as the beast walked alone through the darkened woods, her every step a warning to anyone foolish enough to cross her path. Her body was a deadly weapon, built by years of survival and countless battles. She was the fiercest thing alive, feared and worshipped by those who dared to venture into her domain. Her name was whispered in terror. The beast. No man had ever survived an encounter with her, and she had never spared a thought for the lives of those who cowered before her. Strength was all that mattered. Fear was power. That was the world she knew. But tonight, something had changed. Kara's sharp senses picked up on something unusual. A presence. A movement. She tensed, muscles coiling like a predator, her eyes scanning the dark. Something was out there. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the clearing. A man. But unlike the others who had trembled at the sight of her, he stood tall, unwavering. His eyes met hers without fear. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He saw her. Kara's pulse quickened, a jolt of adrenaline rushing through her veins. Who was this man? Who are you? She growled, her voice rough with the authority she had carried for years. Her presence alone should have shattered his resolve, should have made him bow in terror. Yet he stood there, calm, composed, not an ounce of fear in his posture. My name is Kian, the man said, his voice slow but confident, and I'm not afraid of you. Her heart skipped a beat. Not afraid? No man had ever dared to speak to her like this. No man. Anger flared inside her, but she held it back. She needed to understand. You should be, she hissed, taking a step forward, her towering figure casting a shadow over him. Every male who has ever crossed me has feared for their life. And you're no different. Kian didn't flinch. His eyes remained locked on hers, unwavering. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. I fear nothing, he said quietly, and I see through your rage. You're not just a beast, Kara. You're more than that. The words hit her like a slap. They weren't a challenge. They were a revelation. Nobody had ever seen her as anything but a monster, a wild animal to be feared and avoided. But Kian wasn't like the others. He wasn't cowering. He wasn't running. Her breath caught. For the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of something different. You know nothing about me, she spat, her voice sharp with anger. Her claws dug into the earth, and she could feel the rage building. It was instinct to dominate, to crush anything that dared defy her. But there was something about him that made her hesitate. That's where you're wrong, Kian replied, his voice calm, but with a strength she couldn't ignore. I know exactly who you are, and I'm not afraid of what you've become. Kara's mind raced. Who was this man? How could he face her, stand before her, without fear in his eyes? For the first time in years, Kara didn't feel like the predator. She felt like prey, and she hated it. Her instinct screamed at her to attack, to show him just how powerful she truly was. But when she looked into his eyes, something stopped her. A question, a spark. What was it that made him see her differently? What was he offering that no one else had ever dared? Her growl turned into a low rumble of confusion. What do you want? She demanded, still standing over him, waiting for him to cower. But he didn't. I want you to stop hiding behind your strength, Kian said, his voice soft but full of conviction. You're stronger than this, stronger than the beast you've become. Kara's chest tightened. No one had ever dared speak to her like this. She was the beast, untouchable, unbeatable. And yet, in his gaze, she saw something she hadn't allowed herself to see for so long. Hope. For the first time in years, Kara began to question everything she had built her life on. Her strength, her rage. It had always been her shield, her identity. But this man, this human, was making her question it all. Was she really the monster they all feared? Or was there more to her than just the beast she had become? Days passed. Kara found herself unable to stay away from him. Every day, she watched him from the shadows, his calm presence calling to her in a way she couldn't understand. And every day, the questions burned in her chest. What if there was more to life than power and fear? What if he was right? What if the beast she had become wasn't all there was to her? Kian, too, was different. He didn't seek her submission. He didn't want to tame her or make her his equal. He just accepted her, accepted that she was both the wild, untamable Kara and something more. He saw her potential, saw the woman hidden beneath all the fury and violence, and he refused to treat her like a monster. Then came the day when her tribe returned. Word had spread of Kara's strange behavior. She had been seen walking beside a human, a man who wasn't afraid of her, and the elders of her tribe weren't pleased. They came to reclaim their power, to remind her that she belonged to them, that she owed them her strength, her loyalty. But Kara was no longer the same. The tribe gathered around her, demanding she return to her old ways. The leader of the tribe, a man who had once been her mentor, stepped forward with a sneer. You were born to be a weapon, Kara, not a lover, not a companion. You were born to lead with power. And that human, he spat, is not your equal. He is a weakness. Kara felt a surge of anger, but it was not the blind rage she was used to. This was something different. This was choice. She stepped forward, her claws flexing, but this time it wasn't to fight them. It was to defend herself. I won't go back, she said, her voice steady and full of power. I won't go back to the life you want for me. I am my own. The challenge was clear. Her tribe's warriors circled her, ready for battle, ready to force her back into submission. But this time, Kara didn't fight for control. She didn't fight for dominance. She fought for freedom. The battle was fierce. Her old tribe was strong, but they had never faced a Kara like this. With Kian by her side, she fought not to dominate, but to protect what she had found herself. When the last of the tribe fell, defeated, Kara turned to Kian, her eyes locking onto his with a silent understanding. She was no longer the beast. She was something more, something stronger, something freer. Kian stepped forward, his hand reaching out to her. She took it without hesitation, and for the first time, Kara smiled, not the terrifying grin of a beast, but a real, genuine smile. You freed me, she whispered. Together, they stood at the edge of the forest, looking out into the unknown. Kara had been feared by all, but now she was free. No longer the beast, no longer a weapon. She was a woman who had found her strength, not in power or fear, but in choice, and with Kian beside her. She knew that, whatever the future held, she would face it not as a monster, but as something far more dangerous, a woman who had nothing left to fear,